For our discipline of human resources, and I guess there's a lot of human resource people in the audience today, about harnessing organizations, harnessing the power of people in organizations. To do this, then clearly, in my view, we will become one of the most potent and powerful aspects of any organization, the ability to harness people. And quite frankly, very few organizations, in my opinion, have got to a place where they've truly leveraged the people power in their organizations. So the time has come, I'm pleased to say, for those who are in the HR profession, but we have to seize the opportunity to release some of this power. And the way to release some of this power is to, coming back to the three-letter word why, is to ask some of the whys that we can about how things work in business. And this leads me nicely to the first of our whys that I'm going to share with you today. So here it is. Why HR must focus on the positive as well as the negative. Now, you meet my little friend here, the chameleon, and the thing about chameleons is what? What can they do? They can what? Adapt. They can adapt, but they can also look both ways. They can look forwards and they can look backwards. When you think of HR practice in organizations and employment issues, there's a clue in the term, employment issue. Things are treated as issues, which are very negative. And you look at these sorts of words that we've put in here, these are put into the system that shows some of the biggest concerns that organizations have, employee turnover, absence, morale, all these sorts of issues. Then who do they come to talk about these things? They come to the human resources function, those in charge of people. And as a result of that, the HR functions focus on the negative. How do we resolve these issues? So if staff turnover, which is one of the biggest issues on here, is high, what do? We put in place exit interviews or exit processes. When people leave the organization, we find out why they're leaving. So how many of you or how many of your organizations have exit interview type processes? Hands up. So actually, nearly all of the audience have an exit interview type process. And there's nothing wrong with exit interview type processes, although I have to say they usually generate the same sort of bluff data where people tell you a few little white lies about why they're leaving and it doesn't really come out in truth, but they can be useful. But imagine if we could turn it on its head and stop thinking about the negative for a minute. When I worked for SmithKline Beecham, now GlaxoSmithKline, we had a particular issue in a number of departments back then with turnover. And we turned it on its head and said, rather than focus on why people are leaving, why don't we find out why people are turning up for work? What motivates them to be here? Why should they be here? So we introduced something called a stay interview, a stay meeting. So we got rid of exit interviews and we put in stay meetings. And this was very simply a meeting for an hour with your boss once a year. Outside of performance and objectives, which we all know how those sorts of things go, and career discussions, it was a one-off meeting where we said, how are you getting on? You know, what are you enjoying about your job? Is there anything as a boss I can do differently to help you? Have you got the tools to do the job that you need? Is there anything that we're missing? It's amazing how those conversations, which sound a little bit tactical, had an impact, and actually they had a massive impact on retention and reducing turnover. So that's just a tactical example, but I have to say that looking at the positive aspects of organization isn't just a tactical move. It can be very, very strategic. And let me explain to you how. So back in 2005, I joined McDonald's in the UK at the time. It was my first point of entry into the organization. And the first challenge that I had as the HR director was to ask a question that, and I've learned this, it's the question that I should always ask, or any HR director should always ask when they come into an organization. The first fundamental question that you need to ask. And there are two questions, and they happen to be two positive questions. And here they are. The first question is, what is it that our business needs? In other words, how does the people in this business, happen to be McDonald's in this case, how does it connect to sales and profitability? How does the people bit make this business work? How does the engine room, if you like, work in this organization?